Hello once again, I am Dimensioneer and this is episode 4 of the BZPowerCast. Well, it's been about 4 months since our last episode, and while it's not quite the schedule I had hoped to keep myself to, it is a far sight better than the 10-month span between episodes 2 and 3. So I've got to say there's been at least a little bit of improvement. Now during that time, of course, quite a bit has sprung up that's worthy of talking about, both in Bionicle in general and more specifically in the world of BZPower.com and its members. So in the next few minutes, I will try to touch on as many of those as I can. So let's jump right into it. The very first thing that I want to cover is a little bit of old news. If you've been a member or even a visitor of BZPower for more than just a few months, you no doubt remember the self-proclaimed Maori cyber-terrorist attack on BZPower and its forums. Well, shortly after the last episode of the PowerCast, I received an audio question from BZPower member SkiBiker2000. Now, most regrettably, I've misplaced the audio file that SkiBiker sent in. But I've always promised that if you take the time to send in an audio question, meaning you record your question and mail me the file, I will do my very best to make sure it gets included in the program. So although I do not have the audio file of the question, I do have the audio file of the answer. Now, SkiBiker2000 basically asked, while he was aware that there was a Maori cyber-terrorist attack, he really didn't understand exactly what the attack was, how it manifested itself, and what they did that forced BZPower's forums offline. So, of course, who better to answer that than the man who slaved day and night over a hot keyboard trying to fight off the attack than our own Binkmeister. Bink?
Hi, SkiBiker2000. Binkmeister here with a short explanation. The attacker basically set up a bunch of infected computers, known as zombies, and had each of them send a page request to the BZPower server over and over. The request these computers sent was a specific type of hack that made the forum software grind to a halt, and it seriously inconvenienced us for several days. Rather than give in, we fought back and plugged various holes in the software, but eventually the poor machine became so overloaded with these garbage requests that our hosting company pulled the plug on the forums. So we switched software and ISP. We're now running better than ever. Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Binky. We're going to hear from Bink a little bit later in the show because, as old a topic as the cyber-terrorist attack is, the fact that we moved servers and ISPs is just as old because we've moved again since then. Now, without boring you with statistics and numbers, let me just try to frame it like this. Where we moved to shortly after the cyber attacks was a fantastic hosting company that allotted us a generous 75 gigabytes of transfer every month. Now, to give you an idea of what that means, in order for one person, you, to transmit 75 gigabytes of data in a month, you would have to be sure you downloaded 2.5 gigs every day. And to put it in even simpler terms, that would mean that every 3 weeks you would fill a 60 gig hard drive with just information that you pulled down off the internet. That's how much information we were allotted to send out to all of our visitors. But you know what? We overloaded it. Now, to give you an idea of the kind of traffic BZPower is seeing, in the month of March 2003, which is not yet over at the time of recording this, and which also includes downtime for yet another server move, we have already seen over 103 gigabytes of data transfer. So we had to move again. And this time we decided we've just got to cut out the middleman. We've got to find some place where we can get a dedicated server that's just for us. Now, a dedicated server means just what it sounds like. It's dedicated to BZPower. Now, if you've ever had your website hosted with a hosting company, most likely what they're doing is they're giving you a little chunk of their dedicated server. And they may be hosting 50, 60, 100 sites on their server, all sharing the same memory, the same storage space, but just one little slice of it. Well, that obviously wasn't cutting it for BZPower. So, Rich, Bink, and I gritted our teeth and made the plunge into a dedicated server for BZPower. Now, what that means is, knock on wood, we have room and stability for future growth and should not have to move for some time to come. Now, in preparing for this program, I asked Binkmeister if he would take a moment and record a little status update on the new server. Now remember, this is not the one that's referenced in the answer to SkiBiker2000's question, but the server we moved to after we moved to that one. Bink?
Binkmeister here with a BZPower server update. As you may know, BZP has been so successful that we needed to get our own server. While we moved everything from the old server to the new one, we needed to cut back a few things to make sure we were running smoothly. We've upgraded our server's memory to 1 GB of RAM, and everything seems to have stabilized. So we've gradually put all the features back, like restoring the home page, adding search back, and tightening up all those little back-end things that we need to worry about so you don't have to. We've got lots of things coming up which we think will more than make up for this little inconvenience, and we thank you for your patience.
Thanks again, Bink. You know, he's right. We have a list of things as long as my arm of possible projects and modifications to BZPower, the site, and its forums that we want to try to do in the future. Now, it's a list so long that there's no way we'll ever get all of it done, but there are certainly things that we have on the drawing board, and as we look at each one and find out whether they're really plausible and if they will, in fact, enhance the BZPower experience for you guys, then they just might see the light of day. While we're on that topic, there are 2 recent modifications to the forums themselves that I want to draw attention to. Now, if you're a regular visitor and poster to the forums, then you no doubt probably already know about these. But if you're new or you're just a casual visitor, this is a good time for me to draw your attention to them. Now, the first one, and the less important of the 2, is the ability now to do do-it-yourself name changes. Now, name changing was something that has been possible for some time, but it always required administrator intervention. You had to fire off a private message to either myself or MFUS903, and you had to wait for us to get around to it and get it all changed and drop you an email or a message to let you know it was done. Well, that's changed now. I've installed a new feature whereby from your BZPower control panel, you can go in and change your display name. A display name is simply what it sounds like. It's the name that's displayed anywhere anybody sees who you are. What does not change, though, is your username, by which I mean the username you originally signed up with and the password that goes with it. That will remain the same, only your display name will be changed, and to avoid confusion, I've put a 90-day cap on display name changes. So once you change your name, you must wait 90 days before you change it again. Now, this has already proven to be a very popular feature. Lots of people who were waiting on name changes or just didn't feel like going through the hassle have taken advantage of this. Now on to the more important of the 2 new modifications to the forum that I'd like to bring up, and that is the ability to do a BZPower quick reply to any message. Now, this appears to be a very small thing superficially, but it's a very powerful feature that if you take advantage of it, it's beneficial for you and to BZPower as a whole. Here's why. Anytime you click reply to any topic, what's generated is pretty much an upside-down duplicate of what you were just reading. But at top is a reply box and all the associated buttons, and below are all the messages in the thread you're replying to. Now, that's somewhat superfluous, and if you don't need those buttons and you don't want to wait for the page to load, you can just type your reply right in the quick reply box, and provided you're already logged in, you click submit, and off it goes. So how does it benefit both you and BZPower? Well, you don't have to wait for the new page to load, and it's more economical on bandwidth because BZPower software doesn't have to regenerate the page for you to reply. Now, of course, the quick reply box is by no means mandatory. If you're more comfortable clicking reply and waiting for the page to load so you have all of the plethora of buttons available to you for each reply, then by all means use it. But based on the early feedback, I found that lots and lots of people enjoy having that quick reply there, particularly those with low bandwidth connections. AOL. So there you have it, just a couple of the recent new features we've added to BZPower's forums. I hope you enjoy them. There's certainly more coming up in the future. And as always, we welcome suggestions. If you have an idea that you think would benefit BZPower for any of its members, then drop me a line and I'll certainly take it into consideration. Whenever possible on BZPowerCast, we like to have a special feature, and my favorite types of special features are the ones that are sent in by BZPower members. Well, for this episode, we have just that very treat. Longtime BZPower member Lewa Swingin has sent in an informational review about the Bionicle RPG. Now, this is a game conceived and designed by BZPower members. So now, let me hand it over to Lewa Swingin.
Hi there, I'm Lewa Swingin. I'm here to talk to you about Bionicle RPG. RPG stands for role-playing game. Now, hopefully you've all been lucky enough to have played it on a decent Bionicle RPG. The one I'm talking about is Flow of the River. This brilliant RPG was created by Konoe Kaku and was at the time the first and original Bionicle RPG, at least made, if not thought of. Now about the game. What's it like? What's it about? Well, very much like the Matanui Online game, you start off on the beach near Takaro. You play as a Takaro named Kaiwira. Once you have found your way to Takaro, you must complete challenges and quests to move on to the next village. Like most RPGs, there are monsters, in this case Rahi, for you to battle, and money and experience to be won if you are victorious. So, Now you ask, why is Lower Swinging talking about this game? Good question. Well, when Konoe Kaku first started it, and posted the first demo of the game in the RPG forum, it was an instant success. I, at the time, came across the demo, downloaded it, and was hooked at once. I now help with the images in the game, usually making them from scratch, and helped Kay with design ideas and plot. Several demos of the game have now been launched, each with more and more of the game on it to satisfy the demand we've been having for new installments. The game was made using a Chinese program called RPG Maker 95. For those of you who know a bit about RPGs, may have heard of the makers, translated by Don Mughal, with the 2000 edition now available. The game is not yet complete, but we hope to upload a finished gold version as soon as we can. The game is still technically a beta test, so we'd appreciate feedback on anything you found wrong or doesn't work, and of course hopefully praise too. Anyway, if you're even slightly interested, you can go and check out what's happening with downloads and the game in general in the official Flow Through topic in the RPG forum. Thanks go out to Shadow Cat and Powerhead709 for their contributions to the game. Lastly, I'd like to say thanks to Dimensioneer for giving me this 5-minute slot in the BZPowerCast program, and to you, the members, mods, and listeners, for listening.
Alright, thanks for that, Lower Swinging, and I encourage everyone, if you haven't already, stop by the Bionicle RPG forum and check it out. It's time now for Dimensioneer's BZPowerCast editorial. Some have been known to call it the opinionated rant portion of the show, but I prefer editorial. And the topic for this editorial is the release of the Borak Cowl. Now, of course, the Cowl are the most recent release in the Bionicle line, following closely on the heels of the Toa Nuva. Now, as a standalone series of sets, the Borak Cowl are fine. Just like the Borak before them were fine. If not a bit redundant amongst themselves, they're fine sets. My main gripe comes with the fact that they're really no more than re-releases of the original Borak. Granted, I know that they have some new claws and they have some new color schemes and lots of the protodermis colored chromish, silverish sort of pieces. But in the final analysis, piece for piece, part for part, they're exactly the same as the original Borak. And I personally can't see my way clear to repurchase all of these sets just to get some different colored claws. It doesn't make sense to me as a consumer. I don't want to have to repurchase an entire set just to get a variation on the set. I just want to be able to buy the variation pieces. And that brings me directly to what I wish the Borak Cowl release had been. In Dimensioneer's perfect world, LEGO would have taken a page out of the book of G.I. Joe. Now what the heck am I talking about? The next time you're in your favorite toy store or retail outlet, go down the action figure aisle, if you don't already, and take a look at the G.I. Joe stuff. You'll see 10 or 12 different G.I. Joes you can purchase, and you'll see about 10 or 12,000 different G.I. Joe accessories and outfits and guns and uniforms, all the cool add-ons that make the original G.I. Joe that much more useful. Now what if the Borak Cowl had been like that? You didn't buy new Borak. Instead, you bought Borak Cowl expansion sets. Now as a Bionicle fan, which would you be more likely to spend your money on? $8 a piece for another set of Borak Cowl just to get some different colored claws and pieces, or 6 to 12 Borak Cowl expansion kits priced around $3, $4, or $5. Well, Dimensioneer, what would come in these imaginary Borak Cowl kits? Hey, I'm glad you asked. The kits would have just the pieces you need to turn a Borak into a Borak Cowl. You already have all the pieces if you have the Borak, so why not just buy the parts that make the Borak Cowl the Borak Cowl? Don't make me repurchase the 35 pieces I already own from buying the Borak the first time around. Let me buy the 5 or 6 pieces that are unique to the new sets, and I'll use them to build the Borak Cowl out of my original sets. Now, I understand that LEGO and Bionicle is a money-making venture, and it should. They're producing goods that we consume. But with this type of release, they could have made the same amount of money, and in fact, for my consumer dollar, they could have made a lot more money. I didn't purchase all of the Borak Cowl over again. I bought one Borak Cowl so I could get the mini CD, and I didn't purchase any more. But if you were listening closely, I said maybe they would release 6 to 12 of these expansion sets. 6 to 12? Well, heck, if you're just doing expansion sets, you don't have to limit it to just 6 different Cowl. It could have been 12 or 18 different Cowl. If you were just selling little $3 or $4 expansion kits, make a wide variety of them, sort of like a supercharged Konoe pack, And instead of being a rehash of the Borak, it becomes something new and exciting, something different that I can buy and collect. Well, hindsight's 20/20, and of course, the Borak Cal aren't going to change now. They're out there, they're in your stores, and before you know it, they'll be gone, so snap them up while you can, if you want them. The reason I bring this up now, other than to get it off my chest, is this. The Rakshi are coming. And almost universally to a person, I think most everyone I've spoken with agrees the Rakshi are by far the best thing to happen to Bionicle since the original Toa. The design is fantastic. They look wonderful. They seem to have unprecedented articulation for the Bionicle line. I mean, look at those bendable knee pieces. Those opens the door wide open for mock builders. Great sets. But eventually, they'll be old again. And I fear for the day of the Rakshi Cal or the Rakshi Nuva or whatever suffix they tack on the end of the Rakshi in order to repackage them and get a little more mileage out of them until the next big thing comes along. Which, by the way, is what I feel the Borak Cal were. Maybe, just maybe, in Dimensioneer's perfect world, they'll have Rakshi expansion packs. Something new to be created out of something old, rather than making me buy something old again with a few repainted pieces. And that is Dimensioneer's BZPowerCast editorial. Well, that is going to do it for episode 4 of the BZPowerCast. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to download the show and listen to it. Thanks for all the PMs and emails with comments and suggestions about BZPowerCast, and particularly those of you who take the time to record a segment or question and send it in. In my opinion, that's one of the great things about the BZPowerCast, is to get to hear the voices behind some of those screen names. Thanks, of course, to all the BZPower members, and particularly, last but certainly not least, the Premier members, our much-beloved members who go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that BZPower is still alive and kicking. That wraps it up for now. I will see you on the next BZPowerCast.
BZPowerCast.